Hi folks, and welcome to Senior Phase Options Information presentation for 2022. When I recorded this, the original version of this last year, I presume we'd be back to in-person presentations this year, but it is not to be. So I would like to be in the Assembly Hall facing you all, but I can't do it. Therefore, hopefully you will be able to get the same information from this presentation, and your PHSE teacher will hopefully be able to answer any questions that you might have. So there's a short presentation here. There will then be copies of the option booklet, and it can start you on the process of thinking about what you're going to pick for next year. And when you're ready, you can just select a little arrow to the left at the bottom left and move on to the next slide. So I'll begin by talking through what this presentation will involve. I would begin by thinking about the things that you need to consider when you're deciding whether to return to school. Now, the vast majority of you will be watching this because you are coming back, but there will be some who are not quite sure whether they're coming back or not. So there'll be a short bit about that, and then we'll move on to presuming that I'm talking to people who are coming back, and we'll talk about how you progress between the levels and S5 and 6. Then we'll look at the options process itself, part of which will be done online. And I'll also look a bit about how your choices are widened to out with the subjects available within this school. That's obviously changed a little bit over the last couple of years, and I expect elements of the online offer to pupils to remain. Now at the end, any questions that you have, because I'm not here in person, you'll probably have a few questions you might want to ask your PHSE teacher, and anything they can't answer will be passed on to me. And I'd also say to you that I'm happy to take any in-person questions for you or from your parents if you go home and there are things that they want to know. So this first slide is, I suppose, directed partly at people who are thinking about leaving. And, you know, the dates are there of when you turn 16 and what that means for you in terms of coming back for an S5. And the key thing to notice is that if your birthday is not until the 1st of October, then you cannot leave until Christmas of this year. Although what I will say is that for you, there is another option. If you're not really wanting to come back to complete a year, there is a programme run by North Lanarkshire Council, which was originally called the Winter Leavers Programme. It's now called the Pathways Programme, and it involves lots of taster sessions at New College Lanarkshire, looking at different routes out of education in terms of training, apprenticeships, college courses, jobs. And what I would say to any of you who are considering leaving is that you should make an appointment with our Skills Development Scotland representative, Gail Connolly. If you haven't already done so, she will give you excellent advice about your next steps. So if we look at the progression through the levels in the senior phase, there is what should be a natural progression, a sliding scale that takes you through the levels. And when I say that the courses articulate through the levels, that there should be a logical progression. It should be steps in a ladder, if you like. So courses will be available at up to 4 levels in S5 and 6. We'll look at them in the next slide. But it's important to note that not all subjects will be able to offer progression through all the levels right through to advanced higher. And indeed, it should also be noted that not every pupil will progress right through even to higher level by the end of 6th year. And if you're in any doubt about your your expected progression in any subject, speak to your subject specialist, speak to your teacher. But the aim is that we'll offer as wide a range as possible of subjects and of levels throughout S5 and 6. So the 4 levels referred to in the previous slide are up on the screen just now, and they will be familiar to you. Now, the idea is that you move up through the levels. So if you sat National 4 in a subject in S4, you should be looking to progress to National 5 in S5, and so on and so forth. In S5 and 6, it is largely National 5 and higher that is offered. Sometimes they're offered within the same class if it can be accommodated. Sometimes, if we've got enough uptake, it will be in separate classes. There will be a limited number of National 4 qualifications on offer in S5 as well. Advanced Higher is only really on offer to S6. There are 1 or 2 occasional exceptions to that, but in general you have to have had a good pass at Higher to attempt Advanced Higher. You should also note that Advanced Higher will only be available in a limited number of subjects within the school, and it will depend entirely on student uptake and staffing within particular departments. So this slide is about what we call the consortium arrangements, and that is an arrangement whereby we work in partnership with local schools, and it allows us to widen choice for senior phase pupils in terms of the subjects that they can do. So the way we've done that is that every school has a common start and finish time, and all the period times are at the same time, and that means that we can we can coordinate the offer across different schools. Your courses this year have all been online, and that is likely to continue. So that's something to be prepared for if you're thinking, I want to do this subject and I'm going to do it at another school. You're almost certainly going to be at the end of a computer doing that. But we will provide you with all the necessary equipment to do that within the school. Now, the advantage about the consortium arrangement is that it increases the viability of courses where there are only 1 or 2 or a small handful of pupils choosing it, and it allows us to just widen that scope for all pupils. So that if there is a subject that you have a burning desire to study, but for whatever reason it's not available to you at Clyde Valley, or if there's something else in the same column that you want to take, then we can hopefully try and place you in other schools. One of the advantages of the online offer is that you're no longer restricted by schools that you could travel to in a short space of time. We have had pupils this year studying subjects that are actually on offer at Airdrie Academy, but the student was able to tune in online. The consortium arrangements are of particular use to those of you who are looking to study advanced hires. As I said in the previous slide, only a few will be available within Clyde Valley, and that's only the ones that will have enough uptake to justify a class dedicated to it, and only in those departments where we have sufficient teachers to actually timetable it as well. So for a long number of years, schools in North Lanarkshire have been working with colleges, and in our case with New College Lanarkshire, to provide alternative options for pupils who perhaps are not wanting to do only school-based academic subjects. So here are some of the options that have been made available by New College Lanarkshire. Now I have to say that the pandemic has really hit this element of the offer that we use, because there has not been in-person teaching for many of these subjects, and because they're practical based, it makes it very difficult to do, for example, construction online. It just doesn't work. But we did have lots of pupils, and still do have lots of pupils doing psychology this year. That's generally on offer only to 6th year. It's possible that this situation might change and we may be able to travel between schools again. But basically we were in a position this year that all courses had to have a minimum uptake requirement, and then they were placed within a single school. So really, if we were to offer a course, we would A, have to have the facilities to offer it, and B, we would have to have enough pupils to want to do it. But you need to watch this space with this one. If they allow travel between schools, it might be that we have 5 pupils, for example, that want to do construction, and that might be on offer at somewhere like St Aidan's. And if you were allowed to travel, I would very much support that, but I will keep you posted on that situation. So one of the other choices that is offered is known as a foundation apprenticeship. Again, it's been something that's been hit by the pandemic because a lot of it's practical based, and it really needs travel between schools to be viable, unless you're in a really large school where you have a viable class of pupils who are picking it within that school. So it's offered to S5 and 6 pupils. For S5 pupils, the course will normally run over 2 years, and it would be, instead, if you were picking a foundation apprenticeship, it would be instead of 1 column in S5. So you'd be committing to it for 2 years. And the combined classroom-based knowledge, theory knowledge with skills gained in work placements, and work placements are generally done in S6. Now, these are industry recognised qualifications. They are graded at SCQF, and it's level 6, which is roughly equivalent to a higher. And the key thing to them is that they are very much based on future employment, and your foundation apprenticeship in a subject will quite often lead to an actual apprenticeship when you leave school. There was also a 1-year foundation apprenticeship option for S6 pupils, and that would involve you doing it over 2 columns. It would allow you to overtake the entire course and the work placement in 1 year, but it would wipe out 2 columns for you. This screen shows you some of the courses that have been available. 12 subject areas over the last couple of years in total, and they are done in partnership with employers and New College Lanarkshire. Not all courses will run every year. Just like school-based subjects, it depends entirely on the uptake. In terms of preparation for options, which is what we're doing now, the first stage is to take advice from as wide a variety of people as possible. Obviously, pupil support staff are a great source of information. Our careers advisor, Gail Connolly, will also let you know if you have an idea of a career you want to follow. She will tell you what you need in terms of subjects and further education qualifications to get into that career. Obviously, teachers are another great source in terms of you finding out whether they think you will be able to progress within that subject. Your parents and relatives are another rich source of information. They will be out in the workplace and they will know what is required for certain subjects, so speak to them. Now, visiting speakers has not been a feature for a couple of years during the pandemic again, but that is another thing that we utilise to try and spark interest in certain subjects for people. Now, you will have option booklets in this class just now. The options booklet for this year will also be online for you to refer to, and that will give you further information about all the subjects. Very soon after this, you will be given a login and a password to do your options choices on our online portal. That will be happening over the next week or two. Initially, the choices you make will be an open choice. There'll be a whole list of subjects that we will look to offer within Clyde Valley High School, and you make a choice initially of your top 5 subjects. You will also be asked to make reserve choices, and that is because, and I cannot stress this enough, not everyone will get their 5 first choices. It will depend on the mix of subjects you want to do, because eventually all of these choices will have to go into a column structure. There are only 5 columns, and therefore there are some people who will inevitably end up with 2 subjects that they want to do in the same column. Those choices that you make will be collated and will work out which classes are viable in terms of number. And then our options software will organise that and create a best fit 5 column structure based on the pupils' choices this year. So once you've done your first 5 choices and your reserve choices, the next thing that will happen is that any pupils who do not get their 5 first choices once the column structure has been decided will be asked by Mr. Lanigan or Miss McNaughton to confirm the reserve choice. I stress again that not every pupil will get their first 5 choices, so you should think about what you should have in reserve, and you should start thinking about that now. We want all choices to be made by Friday the 4th of March, and the new timetable will start either in May or June, but that will be confirmed at a later date. You will then have a further choice to make changes to anything that you have chosen, and this will happen usually in light of any of the SQA results in August, and you can make changes then to any options that you have chosen in March. So don't worry too much about the idea that this will be set in stone. Nothing is set in stone. You can make choices, make changes up to a certain point at the start of next session. Now, once the options software has weaved its magic and decided what is the 5 best fit columns for Clyde Valley High School this year, I will produce a physical option sheet, and it'll look something like this. And I think this will help you to see the reality of the fact that not all of you will get your first 5 choices, because we're going to offer over 30 subjects probably at a variety of different levels, from National 5, National 4, SCQF, Advanced Higher. So there's lots of different options, and there is only 5 column slots during the week in a timetable. So inevitably there are going to be situations where you might have more than one subject in a column that you want to do as part of your first 5 choices, and that's why the reserve choices are very important.
So if you are currently in S4 and you're choosing your options for S5, you must choose an option in each column, right? So 1 subject per column, 5 subjects in total. English and maths are no longer compulsory, but what I would say is that I would never advise you to be giving up English or maths in 5th year, especially if you have not yet achieved National 5. So a minimum target for all our pupils is that everybody leaves with English and maths at National 5 at least. But you should always try and progress all your subjects to the highest level possible. But particularly for English and maths, because there are many college courses and apprenticeships that require these subjects. Now, when you're making your choices in 5th year, you must think about workload issues. Right? We would encourage every pupil who wants to do 5 hires in 5th year to do it. But you should also be aware that it is extremely challenging. You are moving up quite a lot from National 5 to higher. And therefore it might be sensible, if you know you're coming back for a 6th year, do you have a 2-year plan? And the types of way that can work is that you do perhaps 4 hires and you take on a new National 5 subject with a view in 6th year to then taking that on to hire. And that is just one of the ways that it can work. But anyone who wants to do 5 hires, would very much encourage them to do so. If you're in S5 moving into S6, you are first of all encouraged to fill your timetable. And there is a very simple reason for that. There can be a malaise that kind of descends on an S6 pupil, and it's directly in relation to the amount of study time or free time that they have on their timetable. Because although it is supposed to be study time, lots of pupils in 6th year seem to see it as free time. Now, you will be allowed 1 study column at the discretion of the school. The basic premise is if you're doing any advanced hires or you're doing at least 4 hires, you're allowed to have a column of study. And that allows us some of the flexibility we require to get 6 years to take on the leadership opportunities we want them to, such as being a school captain. So advanced hire students should have a study column per advanced hire. So if you were doing 2 advanced hires, I would only recommend that you do maybe 1 more hire on top of that. And that's simply because advanced hires involve an awful lot of independent work, and you're going to need to have time out with class to complete that. There are other things that we ask 6th years to do beyond captain's roles, and also what we have is things like peer education, whereby 6th year pupils help out with younger pupils in the school in a class-based situation. It's a very rewarding thing to do, and it also comes with a qualification, a Saltire Award for volunteering. Whatever you choose to do, and whether you're in 4th year or 5th year currently, it's important that your choices are properly informed. Take that advice, do that research, and have a clear plan. Further thing I want to draw your attention to, and this is mainly for those going into S6, is the option of volunteering. We would encourage S5 pupils to concentrate purely on the academic elements of their development in S5. But volunteer work placements have been an option for a number of years, and it's instead of 1 column choice. So you would be, instead of being in a subject, you'd be out volunteering in a workplace. It's recommended only for S6 for that reason. It comes with a Saltire Award, just like peer education. And pupils are encouraged that they should, as a volunteering placement, therefore they need to find a placement themselves. It's very much recommended for anybody thinking about teaching, for example, that they do some volunteer work, usually in a primary school, but sometimes within departments in a secondary school. It gives an opportunity for extended work experience, and it boosts confidence for that reason, giving you work-based skills, but also, making you grow as an adult, really. It also comes with a Saltire qualification for volunteering. So just returning to that idea of making the right choices, how do you make those right choices? Apart from the advice that I've already talked about, I would advise you to check university and college prospectuses, because they will give you guidelines for the subjects that you should be choosing and what the entry requirements are for each of those courses. You should also keep an eye on jobs websites. They will give indications of the qualifications they want. And to refer to something called labour market information, I'll talk a bit more about this in the next slide. But it's information that's freely available about what the projected jobs growth areas will be in the next 10 years. I think it's particularly important in the type of climate that we're in at the moment. In general, the advice should be that you choose subjects that you're good at, first of all, and that you enjoy. If you're not particularly engaged with a subject, if you're taking it just because you think you should, then the reality is you're likely to do less well than a subject that you're actually keen on. And to reiterate that if you're expecting to stay on to the end of 6th year, you plan for the 2 years, not for 1. The labour market information is freely available on Skills Development Scotland website, and it gives you information like this. So in the Lanarkshire area over the next 10 years, these are the 4 areas that there's projected to be lots of jobs growth in. So useful to keep your eye on that. A very brief word about EMA, because there might be some of you watching this presentation that are thinking, I do want to come back, but money's quite tight in the house. I'm not sure whether I should try and get a job. Well, EMA is designed to be there to keep anyone that wants to be in education and who qualifies for it there. So essentially it comes down to you being 16 or over, and that your family circumstances allow you to qualify for it. It comes down to earnings within the household, and if you qualify, you will get £30 per week. But that is provisional on you having 100% attendance and that you're progressing well in your studies. I shouldn't really need to mention good conduct because we don't really get that kind of problem in S5 and S6, but it's one of the reasons that you can lose your EMA. And you also have to be punctual. If there is repeated late coming, I will get a call from the EMA section saying to me, why have you paid such and such their EMA? They've been late X number of times. So it's just worth noting that. Where does this all lead? There is a basic final outcome, and that is a positive destination for all our pupils. We are here as a community to educate all and to ensure that everyone is prepared for the outside world, whatever pathway you choose out of school. And we will help you into whatever one you think fits you. I'll draw your attention briefly to graduate apprenticeship because it's something that some of you will not be familiar with, and it basically offers a combination of practical work-based skills and a degree at the end of it. So it's quite common amongst financial institutions, but things like the whisky industry and also professions like chartered surveying. They are increasingly offering graduate apprenticeships. And the way it works is that you would work for 4 days a week with an employer, and then 1 day a week at university, and you would come out at the end of it with a degree, but also you're earning while you're doing that. So you're earning up to £18,000 a year. So hopefully at the end of the process you come out with a degree, lots of work experience and no debt. So, you know, keep your eyes out for that, Google it, and do some research on it. So that's the end of the presentation. It's been a whistle-stop tour. Keep your eyes on Twitter and the school website, and for pupils on your teams, on your year group teams, because the options process will be coming to you soon through that. Thank you.